Here's how to change the rear differential fluid on a 5th generation 4Runner. There are two 24mm bolts. The top one is the fill bolt and the bottom one is the drain bolt. For the rear, you're going to need about 3 quarts of 75W90 gear oil. It needs to be full synthetic and GL5 rated. Toyota recommends 7585, but this is harder to find, and 7590 works fine, just as long as it's synthetic. You also need a 1/2-inch torque wrench, a 1/2-inch drive ratchet, and a 24mm socket. PB Blaster helps a lot too to get the rusty bolts off. And then go and pick up some crush washers from your local Toyota dealer. You only need 2 unless you're doing the front differential as well. So to start, just spray the 2 bolts with a PB Blaster and let it soak in for a while. This will make it a lot easier to take off later. I let it soak in for about 15 minutes. You could let it soak in for longer. You can always add more if you need later. To not strip the bolt, I cleaned it up with a wire brush. Now grab your ratchet and your 24mm socket. It was kind of hard to break off in the beginning. I had to find different angles to make it work. But once I broke it, I could just unscrew it with my hand. As you can see, you can't reuse the old crush washer as it's already been crushed and it's pretty messed up. These are one-time use washers. I put a pan below to collect all the old differential fluid, and I will dispose of that at like an AutoZone or something. The bottom diff fluid broke loose pretty easily, and then I could just unscrew it by hand as well. It's kind of a mess if you get some on your hand. I think I did a good job of not getting too much, but it still spilled. The drain plug has a magnet on the end of it, so make sure that you install it on the right side. It's designed that way to keep these metal particles from interfering with your differential. All you have to do to clean this off is simply wipe it away with a rag and then reinstall it. Here you can see the silvery metal flakes that come from the grinding of the gears. As long as you don't have any big chunks, this shouldn't really be a problem. Once the fluid started to become a slow drip, you can reinstall the bottom bolt and then get ready to add your oil. To get the crush washers off, I put a screwdriver beneath it and tried to pry it off this way. It didn't really work though, so I just got a hammer and I smashed them off. This was probably the hardest part of the install. It took a lot of prying as they were really torqued on there, making it really hard to get off. Here I finally got the crush washer off, and now it's time to put the new one on. Here's the part number one more time. These only cost about $2 each, and you only need 2 of them for the rear. To start, I just hand tightened the bottom bolt. There's no need to torque it at this point, just as long as it doesn't leak. Both the fill bolt and the drain bolt have the same torque spec, so I was just going to torque them later at the same time. Then I put the new crush washer on that top fill bolt and set it aside for later. The next step is to grab your first quart of oil and cut the top with some dikes. You simply insert it to the hole and squeeze it until the diff fluid comes out. You're going to use 3 full quarts of oil or until it starts dripping out of the top plug. It's kind of a messy job, especially if you're inexperienced, so I'd recommend getting something like Fast Orange or some other mechanic's hand cleaner to get all this oil off your hands. Now you put it in the second quart until it's completely full. And finally, cut the third quart and fill that all the way. Once fluid starts dripping out of the top, that's how you know it's full. At this point, wipe off the differential as best you can, and then add that top bolt with the new washer. Just easily hand tighten it as much as it'll go, and then grab your torque wrench. The torque for the top and bottom drain bolts is 36 foot-pounds. Again, grab the 24mm socket. Torque both bolts until you hear a click at 36 foot-pounds. You can dispose of the old oil at most parts stores. Make sure to drive on your oil for a little while to let it heat up and soak into the differential.